Hey, this is Ariel, and you're listening to the Cyber PR Music Podcast, dispatches for the new music business.
So, Bryan, I would love if you could let everyone know a little bit more about you and what you've been up to lately.
Sure. First off, I want to say thank you so much for having me. We've been friends for a long time. And one of the things that I worked on was quite possibly, I think it was the largest live stream on Instagram ever. We did that.
Was it a live show?
No, it was Jill Scott versus Erykah Badu,
yes.
the Versus event. At one point, we had 760,000 concurrent viewers.
Unbelievable.
Over 6 million unique viewers over the course of a 3-hour IG live session. And I was managing that. And I was helping Jill with it, who's a client. And
who's my favorite.
She's so great. But it's like, okay, now the pressure's on me to do it right. I've worked in the music industry pretty much exclusively since college, and I've had the opportunity to work in a number of different areas, including worked at record labels doing A&R and marketing, worked in distribution, spent some time working at Sound Exchange, and I was helping make sure the artists were getting registered so that they could collect the royalties that they were earning. I've been working with a management company for a number of years called the Blueprint Group, and I oversee digital strategy, and we work with a number of musicians. Our current client roster includes G-Eazy, Jill Scott, as I mentioned, The Roots, Trippie Redd. I also still work with Lil Wayne. Over the years, we've also worked with Kanye West, T.I., Drake, a few others. But,
so you guys, you have to look up these names. They're very small, independent artists. Yeah. Drake, he's up and coming, check him out.
Be on the lookout for that
guy. Very cool. So you and I had a little quick pre-call yesterday, and I'd love to talk marketing for a minute before we dive into a little bit more about Music Business Toolbox and what you do with that. Yesterday, we each had interesting conversations with clients, and we were commiserating about how overwhelming social media has made marketing. And it has made it so that things that are abnormal feel normal, like getting 1 million views on something, getting 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. And it's become sort of now this new norm that people expect that they should have a ridiculous amount of streams on things. I want to repeat a statistic that I love. It takes 380,000 plays on Spotify per month to make $1,400 US, which is kind of minimum wage-ish. You could also play 7 house concerts for $200 in tips and make the same amount. So I think a lot of artists spend a lot of time freaking out about wanting to have giant numbers. And I know you ran into and often run into marketing companies that have questionable integrity about the types of numbers that they're producing. Do you want to speak a bit to that?
Sure. I think what this speaks to is people really being more concerned about vanity metrics than real fan connections. So there's a lot to unpack with what you just said. There's a few things that have been sort of like irking me, especially as of late. But there are companies that position themselves as digital marketing experts. And I was helping this band not too long ago. They were signed to a label, and the label had basically said, "Hey, we're gonna give the manager a budget to go hire a digital marketing agency." And to help my friend, and she's managing this band, she asked me if I would help sort of like review some of the proposals from these various companies. And so I looked at the proposals and ultimately got on the phone and had conversations with several of these companies to like go through what they would do. And what I ultimately realized is all that they would really do is make a few posts on Instagram, and they positioned that as digital marketing. And I was like, well, what about how are you going to deal with the various, the DSPs and Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, and SoundCloud all have tools that you can use to help with fan connections, increasing plays. There are things that you can do on those platforms. Oh, no, we don't really do any of that. It's like, okay, well, what is your plan for doing something with respect to the various social platforms? Okay, yeah, you talked about making posts on Instagram, but beyond that, what are some of the other things you're going to do? Well, we have these things. We'll just make this post, and we'll get a schedule together, and we'll make some posts. So, okay, well, what about collecting cell phone numbers and email addresses so that we have the ability to communicate with people? What's your strategy around doing that? Oh no, we're not really gonna do any of that either. So they said all these things that they wouldn't do, and when it kind of got down to what they would do, all it really was around was they would make some posts, and I was like, that's not digital marketing. Oh, and also the other big thing is they weren't even going to manage an advertising campaign.
Right. So there's a huge difference between social media management and a marketing campaign.
That's right.
And they're different. They're incredibly different. There's nothing wrong with social media management if you're struggling with, trying to figure out what to say, how to say it. You need some help with coming up with interesting content. And there's no shame in that. But that is not marketing. Marketing is different. Marketing is coming up with a strategy to help achieve goals. So content is great. You do have to have good content in order for anything. Just like you have to have good music, you have to have good social media content. Those are like the foundational things. But then comes the question of what's the strategy around what to do. And yeah, you're right. You and I we were like the only two people on Twitter back in the day. And, things evolve and things change and trends change and science around marketing changes all the time. And it's hard to find people that know what's up and really understand. But again, back to these vanity numbers and feeling like there's really something to that. Like if only I could get this number, then the promoter knows that you're BSing. The booking agent you're trying to get knows. There's no one that looks at vanity numbers anymore and goes, oh, look, this band has something going on. I think back in the day, you could kind of a little bit trick people. It's not so anymore. So,
well, let me just say, to expound on what I was telling you with respect to that one band who my friend was managing, and she again asked me to help with sort of like reviewing some of these agencies, but ultimately the label was running an ad campaign, so I started looking into the details of the ad campaign. So I started asking questions about it, and it turns out that the band had shot a couple of videos and had millions of views. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. But when I started digging into the numbers, what it turns out is that 70% of the views were from India, Indonesia, and the Philippines.
Yep.
For this, U.S. like rock band,
a rock band that does not have a fan base, and those
does not have a fan base. And when I compared like the Spotify numbers in India to the number of YouTube streams, there's like literally like a couple of thousand streams in India in the entire period. But it was when it was like 2 million. I'm like, this is all fake. And so I was like, so you guys realize that you're paying, for 10 million streams, and they did more. For every 10 million streams, it cost them $10,000.
Right.
Now, to further, make this sound even crazier to me, is that they had a much bigger marketing budget than most independent artists have. Right. I mean, just that $10,000 alone is a lot more than most artists. But they had spent 50% of the marketing budget on shooting videos. And then when it was like, all right, hey, let's run some ads, they didn't even want to spend, $15,000.
Right.
And I've spent literally hundreds of thousands shooting videos and spending tens of thousands to get fake streams.
Right. Terrible.
So it's frustrating, and some of it comes from just not knowing.
Yeah.
But I it's the kind of thing that I try to help, especially the independent artists, avoid. Like, those vanity metrics don't mean anything. Like, you'd be shocked at how many people their numbers are. They are just.
Well, remember when the Twitter stuff hit the New York Times, and we found out that, like, even the biggest celebrities had.
Yeah.
Yes, they had millions of fans, but there was also millions of fake fans in that. And oops. And it was actually one company that everyone had hired, and that company said, no, these are real, we're doing this the right way, and they weren't telling the truth. So when you're thinking about marketing, I think, especially in light of having a tribe that you want to be connected to, small numbers are okay.
Yeah.
Like, you already have a fan base that's between, I don't know, 1,000 and 10,000. If that went to 15,000 or 20,000, that's doubling your fan base.
Right.
And you could have people there that are completely willing. We work with an artist, I can't say his name, but I'm so happy. He emailed me this morning. 2.5 years ago, when he came to us, he was just putting out his first EP, and he worked really hard to build his tribe from an authentic place. It's the middle of a global pandemic, and he just emailed me to say, I am on track to make $100,000 this year.
Nice.
And it's, for him, it's all about, he's doing it, he's marketing smart, he's spending his dollars when he does market, like you said, really well. He asks a ton of questions. He's bothered to learn how to do things. So mastered making lyric videos, and they're really beautiful videos. Right. They're great. And he's like, I spent like a couple $1,000s on a kind of mediocre music video. And then I realized with a little bit of time, I could learn how to do it. And now he makes one per song, and, lyric videos aren't going to be your number one marketing strategy, but it's a little tool that he uses to populate on his socials, and it keeps his fans engaged, and it costs him time, but it costs him $0 in outlay. So, I love strategies that you can come up with that can be replicatable. He is making a lot of money live streaming during COVID. He's making a lot of money on his page.
I'm curious, how does he make the money from the live streaming?
So the old-fashioned way, he just says, here's my tip jar, come leave me a tip, and he announces it throughout the shows. And he does something very smart. He has a Patreon account, and he does VIP Patreon streams for only those people that are paying extra and pay the monthly. So he does sort of a free-for-all for all his social channels, and then he does like a VIP tier, and it's working.
That's great.
It is working. And, it's so exciting. My heart sings when I hear that it is possible to do it. But he made a real personal connection with his fan base. He did not rely upon me, even though we did his marketing, to do for him his communication. I think that's always a tremendous error. And if someone is going to do your social media, and I know that a lot of the superstars you work with, I'd love if you could speak to how they collaborate with the people that are helping them. I know some, like Quest and the Roots, I don't think he has anyone. Maybe he has someone helping with scheduling, but that's all him.
That's him. For the most part, it is them. I would say, just generally speaking, artists are pretty particular about it. It's sort of like in the early days of it, there was, things that were happening where it would be like, oh, it obviously isn't the artist saying this. And, people wanted that authentic connection. And then it became really a thing to make sure that it really was you that was doing it.
Yeah.
So, for the most part, especially Instagram, the artists are most precious about Instagram. They are less precious about Facebook. And their Facebook page, and will allow you to post things. But I think it's also important that when you're posting stuff, and this isn't just me. This is like just about everybody in my position who works with large artists. But you still have to be cautious about how you position it, because you don't want to be like, hey, I'm saying this as the artist, unless the artist has said, hey, yes, I approve that specific copy.
Right.
And like, if you see something on a page that's like that, with any of my clients, that it actually really it came from them. I think that's really important, and that's really across all the platforms. Whether the big ones being obviously Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but also YouTube. And I think that there's a bit of a people don't. I don't people don't use all of the tools on all of the platforms. Quite frankly, to it's what their capabilities are. But YouTube has got some really cool stuff. Like the community tab can really be an engaging part of how to use YouTube. And then across the DSPs, they sort of have like these social functions built into them. YouTube's being main video one. Pandora's got some really amazing tools with the AMP, which is the artist marketing platform, so artists can do messages like, hey, what's up? This is G-Eazy. I'm going on tour. Tap your screen for tickets, and you can program all of that kind of stuff. Or, hey, listen to my new record, thumb it up. You can put in these kinds of things, and they're really, really valuable with respect to reaching your audience. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really the ones that have these tools that they put into your hands where you can take action, not just looking at metrics, but like take some kind of action. It's YouTube, it's Pandora, it's Spotify, and SoundCloud. The other big streaming platforms can be great partners, but they haven't like put like these self-service tools in place that give you the ability to take action.
Yeah. And, it's hard to learn them, but once you do get off the learning curve, I think even if you have a small following at Pandora, the AMP program is amazing. It's free. Yeah. Once you're in Pandora, anyone can use it. The artist marketing platform. Just Google it. They've got great videos, teach you how to do it. But I think, again, speaking to this, okay, you only have a small audience on Pandora, if that's the truth for you. Imagine your audience tunes in to listen to you and they get a personal message from you. That's really cool. Yeah. And so it's taking advantage.
They're great on that stuff.
Yeah.
Too. They're really, really high. It's really
cool. So if I was an artist and I had a limited budget, like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000, I know there's no blanket answer for this because it depends on what's already working for the artist. But do you have some advice on a good way to spend initial dollars if you're getting into marketing your music for the first time? And let's say you're equal on all platforms, whatever that means. Let's just say everything is equal across platforms.
Sure. It's really tough because no two artists are exactly the same, but there are a few tenets that you can think of, sort of follow them, that will be really helpful. Like building the direct connection with your fans is important. So there's a cost for using a platform. There are mobile messaging platforms like Superphone and Community that make it easy, and Fan Connect. Those are really great platforms that allow you to connect with fans over mobile, which is great because open rates are really high. People generally take action on them. You have to be careful about, you don't want to like spam people on cell phone. But it's a great, you start building, say, hey, I'm gonna call some fans. Text me right now and post that on your socials. Then call some of your fans, film it, and then show you calling fans. That'll help you get more cell phone numbers, build up more connections. This artist named David Sebastian, who's an independent musician making a lot of buzz, that's how he released his album. It's not available on any streaming platforms. If you want his album, you have to text him. Him, and you have to, he said the album is $7.77. Send me a screenshot of you making a donation to me through whatever platform, or PayPal, or Cash App, or whatever, and then I'll send you a link to check for the album. And he's made a lot of money from doing that.
That's amazing.
But it's great. So the cell phone numbers is great, but you got to pay to use those platforms.
Yeah, so Superphone is expensive. We have a little hack we use at Cyber PR. It is owned by Facebook, so I will proceed this with that. But WhatsApp does allow you to have a group of up to 256 people. I tested it out earlier in the pandemic with a group meditation. I got invited to do one, and I thought it's on WhatsApp anyway. I invited my list, and 45 musicians and artists and industry folks joined me, and we did the Deepak Chopra abundance meditation every day for 21 days. And it was free, and we were all communicating with each other on WhatsApp. And I thought, wow, this would be a great tool. If you're a musician, you can say, would you like to join the WhatsApp group? And group, so there'll be a bunch of messages. But if you're into that kind of thing and you're okay with your fans getting into the conversation, that could be an inexpensive way to test it out to see if it's for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great hack. Actually, I know some other artists who've like sort of like built their own version of Superphone or Community to try to save money.
Yeah,
I get everybody's not that technically advanced. Yeah. I'm not, but
please don't build an app. Please don't. We don't need no. But Slick Text is way less expensive than Superphone. It doesn't have as many cool features built in for artists, but that's one we also recommend.
So, collect cell phone numbers, collect email addresses. FanBridge, MailChimp. One of these platforms you use to collect email addresses, because when you collect email addresses and cell phone numbers, essentially you need to, when you have something to sell, set up a store so you can sell some merch. You're selling something, so that when people are buying, you're pixeling them using Facebook and Google. So that basically what you want to do, and when I say pixeling them, basically you're going to track these people so that you can run ads to them later. So if somebody buys something, or maybe they don't buy something, they abandon the cart. It's called, cart abandonment. So they get almost to the point where they're about to buy. They take a t-shirt and they put it in the shopping cart, and then they just don't hit the buy button. Well, if you can send them an ad later, this is, hey, don't forget to get this t-shirt. It's probably happened to you. You've been on.
Right, think about Zappos, or
exactly.
You're looking at garden hoses. Then everywhere you go, garden hoses start popping up. That's because they pixeled you. Yeah,
that's right. And you can do that too. But when you so building email addresses and building cell phone numbers over time give you the ability to have this audience. You can then take those phone numbers and email addresses, and this is a little creepy if you're not familiar with it, but you can actually upload them to Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook will match their Facebook and Instagram accounts to those email addresses and cell phone numbers. So you can now run ads to those people just in case they don't respond to your texts or they don't respond to your emails. But over time, as you build that out and you have enough people in it, you can do what's called a lookalike audience. Basically what you say, hey, Facebook, go find me more people that have the same characteristics as these people. And then you can run ads to those people, introducing them to your music. I think people too often think about music videos only as something to consume as an organic piece, but think about it in terms of an ad. If you run your video as an ad, you can then also see how long people have watched. So if you run your music video to 100,000 people, well, if 2,000 of them watched the entire video or 75% of your video, those are people who are really engaged with you.
Right.
Retarget those people with other things. Don't worry about the other, 98,000 people.
Right.
Focus on the people who have engaged. And by running these ads, so you're saying if you only have a couple $1,000s, like that is a way, getting your email, getting your cell phone platform, starting to build the audiences, and then running ads to increase those audiences. That's, I think, really some of the best ways to start by building your fan base. The artist has got to continue to do things that are valuable to the fan, that are engaging to the fan. And that's really what your responsibility is.
I work with an artist named Manifest, Chris Greenwood. He's a Christian rapper from Canada. And he discovered, because the religious thing and sharing a scripture every day and a little message every day with his fan base, which is huge, actually works every day, which is amazing. I mean, to email that many people every day, and he had very little drop off. So I wouldn't recommend every day, but I hear from artists all the time, like, oh, I'm really nervous. I don't want to bother people. And then they're sending an email like 4 times a year because they're so freaked out about being like those annoying artists. You can send with frequency. You just have to understand the vibe and the feedback that you're actually getting. There's another tip. When you send an email from MailChimp, from FanBridge, from Bandzoogle, from any of them, you get rewarded when people respond to your email, because what it's showing is that you're not just having this one-way conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not take the time to respond to fans that respond to you, of course, if the fan is going to take the time to read your email and respond to you and then you don't respond back, that's not so good.
Yeah.
You know?
And that can be difficult when you get, once you start getting into thousands and tens of thousands of addresses. But, even if you do something, that's a really good point. Maybe, from time to time you go on and maybe do a video and respond to some, hey, I'm going to respond to a few emails. That could be cool. And I want to mention one other tool that I think is also really super valuable that has really taken off over the course of the past few months is Twitch. And we could spend a lot of time talking about it. I won't go into that much detail, but Twitch is, built for live. They do an amazing job of helping artists to connect with people who want to engage in the moment. And there's some really interesting opportunities for monetization.
Yeah, Bands in Town has some great tutorials about that. And then for those of you that are really interested in Twitch, Karen Allen, our mutual friend, has created a program called Twitch for Musicians. And if you look on my podcast, I did a 2-part interview with her where Karen takes you through an amazing tutorial, which will catch you up to speed on all things Twitch.
Brandy is another artist that I work with, and she has a record coming out this week. And so we're running a contest using ToneDen where it's like, hey, if you want to get into a private Zoom with Brandy where she previews the album and talks about it, pre-save on Apple, pre-save on Spotify, share, and then you can share it, and others.
Like a raffle.
Yeah, so and the more things that you do, the greater your chances of winning are. And we're just going to take like 20 people, and they're going to get into a Zoom chat with Brandy. They'll be able to ask her some questions, and we're doing that on Thursday night before the album comes out. So you'll be able to hear the entire album first from her, and we're going to also stream it we'll also stream it live for other people. But for a limited number of people, they'll actually be in the Zoom conversation with Brandy and get to ask her questions.
So cool.
But like we've collected thousands.
This is all ToneDen. They're collecting the different keystrokes, as it were. Okay, so ToneDen, we just had a demo here. It's $300 a month, so it's a bit of an investment to get this level. But they also are amazing with ad retargeting, and they have like a plug and play ad system just built for musicians and giving away tracks. So if you're willing to do a bit of an investment, play with ToneDen. There's a free version, but it might be worth going up a level.
I'll also just mention one other platform too with respect to advertising is, and I mentioned a lot of sort of like detail around running ad campaigns. A great place to get started is a platform called Foundee. It's FOUND.EE. They really, really simplify the process, especially, they built it for independent musicians, and it's really an amazing tool.
Cool. So Bryan, talk to us about what is Music Business Toolbox? Where are you at? I know you've been revamping it and doing all kinds of new things with it for 2020.
Yeah, so it's helpful to maybe just provide a little bit of context on why I created it in the first place. It's crazy, but it's been many years. When I saw the industry change, and I was working at labels, and I've been doing A&R, and I saw all the barriers to entry coming down with respect to, recording became cheap and easy. And this is also showing my age, right? But like the first records I A&R we did on 2-inch reels and 2-inch tape. There was no MySpace even. There was no, email marketing was just starting to become a thing. There was no iTunes. There was no, streaming for sure. As the barriers to entry all came down, there was more and more people doing it. I thought there needs to be tools in place to help the independent musician. Since more people are going to have access, people need to be guided through the process, because even though those barriers to entry have come down, there's still a knowledge gap. And there's a lot of things that can be really complicated about the music business. And, quite frankly, to this day, I'm still just don't see much information in a consolidated place in a way that is really accessible to artists. I feel like that has been one of the things that it's a skill that I've developed over decades, is being able to take complicated ideas and be able to communicate them effectively to the music community. That was something I worked a lot on while I was at Sound Exchange, and we were having to communicate, very complicated licensing constructs to musicians. That's not their core part of their life, is, understanding non-interactive digital streaming. They play their music, but understanding the details of these licensing constructs and that kind of thing were challenging. So I really honed my skills in being able to communicate these complicated issues effectively. And I took that and continued to build on the Music Business Toolbox so that I could provide information to the ever-growing community of independent musicians so that you can get the information that you need in order to be successful. And from my jobs doing marketing and A&R and working in distribution and management, there were a lot of tools that I created on my own to make my job easier. And I just took those things and put them together in this set of tools called the Music Business Toolbox, along with a book that really walks you through the entire process of getting your release together and putting it out and monetizing it. It's a lot to it, but I tried to make it as easy as possible. And look, there's some really good books out there. I know Donald Passman's book, All You Need to Know About the Music Business, has been industry standard for years, and it's really good. But if you're not going to be arguing about copyright reform, you know what I mean? Like,
you don't need to read it.
You don't need it, right? Like, you need more practical. And that was my whole thing, was how do I give you practical information,
right?
To get your music out, market it, get people to understand it, and how do you make money? So it's things like a template for a marketing plan, a template for a business plan, and a one sheet and a release schedule checklist that walks you through all the things that you need to do leading up to the release of your record, a budgeting tool so that you can say, all right, if I spend this much on all of these things and I make this much, I have this many streams, well, how much money is that going to leave me? How much money am I going to make? You can do all of those things. It's also been exciting because a number of universities have started implementing it and using the Music Business Toolbox to teach their classes. And one in particular is Kennesaw State University, Joel Katz School of Music Business and Entertainment. And that was actually one of the things that we did as a class assignment. The class created a marketing plan and a budget, and then had to defend it in front of the class, which was really amazing. So it's all of these tools that you need in order to be able to effectively get your record out and make some money and understand the process. I start the book in the very beginning, walking you through the core things where you make money. And it really boils down to, these four things. You make money on your sound recording, what you hear. You make money on your composition, what you write down, the value of your brand. So being able to sell a t-shirt with your logo on it, and then live appearance stuff, whether it's, showing up and just doing an appearance at a club or doing a performance. But really all the money that you make in the business is from those four broad categories. And so then I just go into more detail about it and provide the tools and the information and resources that you need to be able to manage your business.
Very, very cool. Bryan set up a special for everyone that is watching this.
I did.
Thank you for that. It's 50% off.
50% off, yes.
And you can find it at Music Business Toolbox /cyber PR.
That's right. businesstoolbox.com/cyber PR. Yes.
So when this goes live, I'll put the link there. Bryan, thank you so much for your marketing insights.
Thank you.
To hang with you.
No, it's always a pleasure.
For anyone that's dying to ask Bryan a burning question,
be happy to respond to some questions. Just hit me on Twitter. It's at Bryan Calhoun. I will be happy to respond to some questions. Just give me a little bit of time.
Thank you, Bryan, and thanks for all of your very sage advice today.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate what you do, and I love being around people who are philosophically aligned with and really genuinely care about the artist and music community. I firmly believe that the world would be a better place if more musicians were able to make music and make a living making music. Quite frankly, it's a big part of my life's mission to enable that.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, everyone, check out musicbusinesstoolbox.com. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryan.
Bye-bye.
This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Bandzoogle. Built by musicians for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform that makes it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Enter the code CYBER15 to get your first month absolutely free.